In exactly 31 days from today, we will celebrate the 9th anniversary of this show. And in that time, we've driven cars on roads, off roads, in some sketchy places like through a swamp in Alabama, as well as jumped a full-size SUV in the Arizona desert. Now, in that same time, we have never shot underneath a road, especially a historical road, and not just Trace Parkway just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. So while we're here, let's try something special, perhaps a Lexus. And let's do so around some of the stunning roads outside one of my favorite cities in all of the good old US of A. Okay, so here we go, Lexus number 5. Yeah, Foomph. In like a whole new ethos of Lexus. Over the past, 3-4 years we've been experiencing this. We've driven everything from like sporty to not so sporty. And then there was the look into your soul LC500. Today there's no looking into souls. Today we're gonna try something different, kind of like the basic Lexus. Let's put our foot into it. V6 we talked about in the tech review. And it's kind of quick, actually. And this is an engine we've driven before. It wasn't called a Lexus at that point. It was called a Toyota. But it's effectively the same engine. It's built in the same factory as is the car. But here it works quite well. And I have to say, you do notice two interesting things. Number one, overall, it is significantly more quiet in this than the Avalon. And number two, this does have it's a sharper feel than it was in the previous car. Not sharper to the point like, oh my God, I'm going to confuse this with a BMW, but like you put your foot into it now, and it kind of scoots a bit more. Now keep in mind, this is more than 10% increase in horsepower, and I think that's really the big thing going on here. Where you really notice the big difference is under hard acceleration going from a moderate speed to a higher speed. The engine doesn't have to work as hard in this version as opposed to the ES that it replaces. Well, let's clarify that statement. Where specifically does this pulling power work? Well, in suburban neighborhoods, particularly nice ones like this, or around town, it's that kind of a setup using this engine. It's not something like an LC500. As long as we're clear on that, then let's move on. Now, I know you were asking yourself the following question throughout our tech review. What the hell is the difference between a Toyota Avalon and a Lexus ES besides the design, the badge, and of course more money? Well, I asked the question and I got an answer which kind of surprises me. It's a lot, and it's way beyond just like, oh, we tuned the suspension different. It starts with the suspension, and yes, they did tune it different, but parts have been changed. Like the front subframe in this thing is completely reinforced over the Avalon. Then the construction changes. Remember we talk about Toyota New Global Architecture, or whatever the hell they call it. It's more of an ethos than a platform. This uses a different platform, and the reason why is the construction is different, because this one is literally screwed together with lasers. Well, laser welded screws. And then it's glued together like my beloved Lotus, 65 feet of adhesives, they tell me. Then there is a stiffening brace between the shock tower here and the shock tower over there. Then there's more sound deadening. And then, oh yeah, there's one more thing. It has 1 extra horsepower. Okay, so let's get something out of the way right at the top. This an ISF or GSF replacement? It is not. Now that we are crystal clear with each other, what is it? Well, there is a significant change the minute you get behind the wheel of this thing. It like smacks you in the face. We just spent a lot of time talking about, well, what's the difference between an Avalon and an ES? And the first thing you notice is it is a much more controlled car to drive. You know, you get behind the wheel of a front-wheel drive car and you immediately feel like, oh, well, there's something not specifically right, especially for someone who's into driving. This, it feels as if there is, yes, more strength, but B, much more control over the dampers. And really, it's not the dampers that are doing all the work, but what they've done is all the strength The adhesives, stolen from Lotus, I'd like to point out, the laser screws, whatever they want to call those, and then that X-brace, you feel the extra strength here. The changes almost go as far as to mask that this is a front-wheel drive car. There's only 1 or 2 instances where you feel it's a front-wheel drive car. And you know what? Rather than me tell you, let me show you. So let's come to a complete stop here. And this is the big instance where you feel it. So complete stop as the rain picks up just a little bit here outside of Nashville. Put our foot into it. There's like the slightest bit of torque steer. Other than that, the changes in strengthening the structure of the car and then changing the dampers, they call them these special dampers, but changing the dampers make this feel so much more controlled. Where ESs of the past, especially early generation cars, were somewhat sloppy because they were meant for like my 80-year-old aunt. They weren't meant for car guys and gals like you and I. I feel the engineers had a tough balance here because they had to evolve the car to gain more sales, but still not alienate the folks that were buying these things. So they came to this unique balance of, let's have some driver control so we can expand the pool we sell these cars to, but let's still have that compliance for the folks that live in houses like these. So surprise of all surprises, Lexus opted to do the global launch of one of the most important cars at a golf course. And you know how I feel about golf. Well, I'm not so mad about golf courses because at least on a Sunday you can park cars on them, which is the best use for a golf course. Anyway, while we were here, I had to find something to entertain myself, so I found some naked bits. This one I stole from the chief engineer of the ES, super cool guy, Jahzzar. And it turns out it's not an adjustable damper like in the F-Sport, which we'll drive when we get back down to the hangar. This is a standard old damper, but there's something unique about it, and not 1 but 2 valves. So Jahzzar, he invented this thing called a swing valve, and basically what it is, it's a second valve in front of the main one, so it allows the damper oil to go in and out, not just one direction. And effectively what that does is it enables this damper to be compliant and composed, because normally you either get compliant for people that for some reason want to chase a small ball for 18 holes in 4 hours of their day, or composed for people like us that want to go to track days and fly airplanes and use their time wisely, people. That's kind of what this is, a balance between people like me and people like that guy over there chasing his white ball. So the sky opened, closed, and yet it still has that ominous look. But we're professionals. What is it? Like the U.S. mail, neither rain nor sleet nor snow. We got to get back to work. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the transmission, because it too is new like the engine. And this, like those Volkswagen Group cars that have the DSG, it is well paired with this engine. Like you put your foot into it, the shifts are quick, it works well under load, and the thing you notice is you don't notice the shifts, which, aren't we shocked? In a Lexus, not really. Then there's some usability things that we talked about in the tech review that how does it work out here? Well, now I've driven, 3 of these like new generation of Lexus with these ridiculously big head-up display systems. And I gotta tell you, I really like it. And it's not just because I'm a pilot. I love head-up displays. And this one, the fact that it's so wide, it's not so much that it's tall, it's particularly wide, so you get real-time information, like real road names, and interesting, when you get a phone call, you get the person's full name. And then there's something that is so small and minute, only an OCD freak like me would notice, but it's the kind of thing that transforms the usability of this car, and it's not this ridiculous thing here. It's the knob. Now, this, first saw it on the LS500. And what's unique about the knob is it's not 2 knobs. It's a volume knob here, but then there's the tuner knob here. Now, call me crazy, I am excited in a world that, A, I can go to an airport, have TSA pre-check, and not have to take my shoes off. If you told me that was the biggest excitement of my life 10 years ago, I'd tell you you're crazy. And number 2, if you tell me I'd be excited about knobs, I'd tell you you're crazy. But the fact that knobs are novel in a car nowadays is kind of scary to me, but it's wonderful when you see it because you realize simplicity is really the best design. Even though this thing is bigger, and if I like go to the map, I can do the pinch to zoom kind of stuff here. Actually, let's do it. See, it's already causing me trouble, which illustrates my point. The simplicity and design of knobs in a moving car. This is what you need when you've got a turn up ahead, or you got to avoid traffic when you get off of a country road. You want simplicity. And so we're left with two final things to discuss. The first being incredibly simple. The 7th generation ES is way better than I expected. Like, what used to be a very modern, rather fancy interpretation of a Buick is now so much more than that, in that it can do a lot of things. Like, it's composed to drive, it's much more interesting to look at, and the interior, there's no nice way to put this, people who are younger than 80 will want to be there. So the question is not, oh my God, someone spent a lot of time making this better, because we know it's Jahzzar, the car's chief engineer. The question really is, why did they make it so much better? And that's where I get a little worried, because how many times have I stood here and said, oh my God, crossovers are taking over the world and sedans are going away? But yes, Toyota, they're the contrarian investor. But are they the contrarian investor to the tune of 3 sedans? Because right now, they have the ES, which clearly ain't going away because they just refreshed it. And then there's the IS, and then there's the GS. Now the IS, I don't think that's going away, because I don't think a C-Class is going away, and certainly the 3 Series ain't going anywhere. But then there's the GS. And that's where I get a bit worried, because here's a car that's all of a sudden batting above its station in life. Is it doing that because the GS is going away? Now, do I have any facts here to back this up? No. Can I say here that I had some conversation with somebody? No. But when I ask the question about the GS, I get crickets. Same thing about the IS, but there's no way I think Lexus can give that up, especially since Cadillac gave up the ATS, which means there's more room for the IS. So, I'm going to say this is just one man's opinion, but I'm going to turn it around to you. Now that you know that the 7th generation ES is what it is, do you think the GS stays around, or it doesn't get renewed? Or do you think both the GS and the IS get the axe, or do they all stay? And give me a reasoning as to why you make that decision, because you're basically giving you 3 choices here. Let me know in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV on Word, MotoManTV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I think Kumo and I are going to have a philosophical discussion about the business case of luxury sedans. Until we see you next time, bis später.